Have you ever felt stuck in your growth journey, wondering how to build resilience in the face of challenges?
Or maybe you're looking to shift your mindset and unlock your full potential.
Well, if you said yes, then you are in the right place.
Welcome to the Stretch Zone. I'm Hannah.
And I am Feds.
And here we explore self-development, nurture resilience, and embrace the mindset shifts that help you grow beyond your limits.
Hello, welcome back. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Feds. Welcome. Nice to see you today.
See you too. How are you?
Yes, really good, thank you. We were just having a little chat this morning, my husband and I, about planning our trip back to the UK. So I've just been thinking about all the things that we need to organise and getting my brain into travel mode, which is always fun.
Nice. Well, to be
Yeah.
honest, it sounds good fun. And that's amazing.
Exactly. And nice segue.
Yes. So we were actually speaking about traveling just before clicking on recording. And it's very connected to what we're going to talk about today because the theme of today's episode is play. And I think this is a word that is often misunderstood when it comes to adults. We often associate playing with children, kids, but I would like to invite you all to try and see things differently. And first of all, we need to understand exactly where we are, right? As adults, we are always somewhere between paying bills and commitments. If we have kids, if we have animals, if we have pets, if we have parents, there are so many things that we need to think about. And so, of course, because we have so many commitments, we often forget like this idea of playing, having fun. It slowly, quietly disappears from our lives, which is sad,
It
to be
is, isn't
honest.
it? As you were saying that, I was like, oh, I
It
felt like
is
I was withering inside as you said it. It's
sad.
so true.
Yeah. And I think that we should start with a little bit of a definition, like what play is. And it is definitely something that brings enjoyment. It brings, stimulates curiosity, as experimentation. Um, the whole point of play is not productivity. It is something that we truly and deeply enjoy just for the sake of it. We choose to do it, whatever
Mhm.
activity it may be.
Mhm.
And the funny thing is that it often looks pointless from the outside, but in reality, it brings us so much joy and so much comfort as well that is needed, desperately needed, I would say. So, um, clients, people, adults often believe that playing is childish. It is something that we often connect with what kids do, right? Um, Often people believe that play is irresponsible in some sort of ways. Like, why are you wasting your time doing something that doesn't bring in any money or any benefits, right? For your business, for your career, for your bank account. And play is something that you earn. You have to do something hard, and then you can allow yourself to play. And I think this is something that comes from school times, right? Finish your homework, you do all of your things, and then if you have some time left, then you can play. So we want to try and start reframing a little bit this idea that play is not the opposite of growth.
Mm.
In fact, it is one of the ways growth happens. And without play, we would probably end up feeling quite miserable and probably stuck. Um, And I would like to invite you guys, whoever is listening, to think about when was the last time you actually allowed yourself to play, to spend time playing. And when did play start to feel optional instead of necessary? Um, Hannah,
Yeah.
I'm really interested here. What kind of science insight do we have about this?
Yeah, so you've made some really fabulous points. And something that really stood out to me there was this whole the the idea that play is the opposite to growth. That really stood out to me when you said that. And I genuinely am saddened to think that, yeah, somewhere along the line in the last however many years, I do think that started to become apparent in my brain that there's no time to be creative and playful like there used to be, especially since business building and moving overseas and having all these big life changing decisions come up
Hmm.
for myself. And so, you asked, when did that shift change? I sort of feel like I'm someone that I could keep hold of that for quite a long time until life became overwhelmingly stressful. And
Hmm.
our brain is a tricky little one. And when we have a lot of uncertainty, it will start to predict things and control certain things through those predictions. So, this actually can help us in short term stress. And that is the reason why our brain does that. So, when we are facing big uncertainty or there's just a lot going on, creating big checklists, creating schedules, things that we can predict take some of
Hmm.
the stress off of us, right? So,
Yeah.
let's just remember that that is something that's really useful to us in short term ways. Where it gets tricky is then that's how we live our life continuously.
Yeah.
And we then forget there's other benefits to being creative and playful and not always switched on in schedule mode and planning mode and controlling mode. So over time, that sort of strictness that we've created, it will actually reduce our creativity, it will reduce our curiosity, and in return, that actually reduces our emotional range and capacity. So neurologically, play itself helps us with lowering our cortisol level, our stress hormone. And
Yeah.
if you can think about, when you're in the flow state, we talk about that sometimes, that's a form of play. So for certain people, play doesn't necessarily, by the way, let's just let's just wrap this up. Play doesn't mean that I'm sat playing with my toys on the floor like
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
It can be. I just recently went and saw my little nephew who lives in Boston. He's 2.5, and it's seriously amazing how children can entertain themselves. I mean, I was there playing with him, but it's seriously amazing how watching him play with this one toy, not in the way that it's meant to be used either. It was like this. I think it was making soup, and it had all these little um, images of different flavors, and they were all random types of things. So you've got, I don't know, you've got cabbage, you've got carrots, and then you've got pine cones in a soup. And you're meant to
Delicious.
you're meant to read a card and put all exactly the right pieces into this big bowl. And he had no interest in doing that. No
Of
interest in
course
doing
not.
that. He literally for 45 minutes poured all the pieces from the lid to the main bowl, stirred it really vigorously, and then poured it back into the lid, and then poured it back in for 45 minutes. I thought that was
Nice.
incredibly impressive. And
Yeah.
I somehow played with him through that whole whole thing. So yes, obviously children play, but um when we're talking about play and that flow state, so I'm going to start to choose a slightly different language here. Flow state is when you're really in the zone of doing
Yeah.
something in a playful way. So I'm going to bring play back into flow state. So flow state sometimes can be you're sat doing a piece of work and you feel in the flow state at your computer, but let's remove ourselves from the computer. Let's think about play in the form of learning an instrument, like knitting, like riding a horse, I don't know, learning some craft or something that you do with your hands, as examples. This activity, if you think of yourself doing it, this starts to lower our stress hormone, that cortisol level, and it lowers our baseline stress. So when our baseline stress is lower, our capacity is greater for growth and
Mm-hmm.
learning and taking on new things. It If we can keep with this theme, it also increases our dopamine, our happy hormone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm really trying to think of myself in a moment of play, and that feeling of kind of ease starts to take over, and it can really support our learning and our motivation, that dopamine
Mm-hmm.
high that we get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dopamine also improves pattern recognition and memory. And I'm thinking I play a musical instrument called a hang drum, and I
Yep.
haven't got it out for a while, but I must say it's bringing back memories of that, and I need to get it out from the corner and start playing. And I would sometimes just sit for 15 minutes every day, and I'd be learning a new physical pattern, and I could see from the beginning of the week to the end of the week how, just through trying the same thing over and over, by the end of the week, oh my goodness, I'm not even thinking about it, and my hands are able to go into the right places. And if you can be not frustrated in the beginning, so that's the tricky part. The first couple of days I would get it wrong and I'd be making mistakes.
Yeah.
But by the end of the week, just knowing and trusting, hey, if I just do this a little bit every day, then actually by the end of the week, I'm going to have this and it's going to be okay. And I would totally get into that state of just in the zone, playing for enjoyment and nothing
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how the body can learn those patterns and
Yeah.
can grow just by giving it a try.
Yeah.
um so psychologically as well, this increases the art of play. It increases our cognitive flexibility. And that's a really interesting one. So, cognitive flexibility, it means that we can be less rigid with our point of view, less rigid with our daily patterns of scheduling and how we have to do things. We can maybe start to see things from a different perspective as well, which
Yeah.
is a really useful one, especially for people like us who transition and move all around the world. It's not going to benefit us being really narrow minded. So it allows us to take the blinkers off and see things with a bigger, larger perspective, which I really love. And I'm thinking about, for example, I didn't physically play, but I'm just remembering how not long ago I went to my husband and I went to our friend's daughter's baseball game because we're now living in the US, and that's something that's really unusual for us. And we maybe that's a bit weird that our friend takes their friend who don't have children to see his kids' baseball game. But because we're from overseas, we were just like, we really want to go and see it. This is so cool. I want to have this American experience. And it was, really cool to just be sat there. I was about to try and use the correct terminology, and now I've totally forgotten. Is it the bleakers? The seats that you sit in? Oh, I feel so
Oh,
silly now that I've suddenly
you're
forgotten. Ah,
you're asking the wrong person here. I went to see a baseball game in America. I sat there for 10 minutes and I was like, nope, thank you, I'm done.
how funny, because
Bye.
we also went to a real baseball, but sorry, not real,
Uh-huh.
a professional professional one. And yes, 10 minutes in, both of us were like, this is the most boring thing I've ever been
Yeah,
through.
yeah, no, yeah, no.
It was
Sorry,
good.
sorry, American
However,
people, but
it was really good for the vibes. So, like, it felt
yeah,
really wholesome. Everyone was together. We've got all these different mixed backgrounds and nationalities together, and it felt so beautiful from that aspect. But yeah, watching the actual baseball was like watching paint dry. However, watching our friends' base, daughter's baseball match was far more interesting because you're much closer to it, the action,
yeah,
and also it just it gets moving much quicker. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, and I guess
Like,
also that our parents are really
yeah,
excited to
yeah, yeah.
see their kids,
Yeah,
so it just
exactly.
gets
Even we were like, "Come on," to our
yeah.
friend's daughter, who we know quite well. So it's a different kind of vibe. Also, just a side note, it's the stopping and starting of the game. It feels relentless, and also often we didn't even know that they had already started again. So it was
Uh
like
huh.
this big thing about all the breaks in between the the switches, and then it's like, oh, they're playing again.
Hmm.
And
But I say this is an interesting point because I guess it also means that different people have a different idea of what play is, right? For some
100%. Yeah,
people,
yeah,
for some people, playing baseball might be the most enjoyable activity whatsoever, while for other people it might be not. And also, I think if you talk to someone who plays baseball, let's say
yeah,
an amateur, right? Someone who does it at the weekend with
yeah,
his mates, her mates,
yeah,
then of course it's going to be like a game. It's more of a play.
yeah.
If you go and talk with a professional player,
It's
they're not
now
going to have the same attitude. No, they're not going to
their
have the
job.
same attitude. So for them,
Yeah,
play means something completely different, right? So
yeah,
I think an important point that I'm grasping, from what you're saying is that play is extremely personal. It
yes,
really depends on your perception and what is enjoyable and
yeah.
chosen, and doesn't really bring any monetary benefits, let's say.
Yeah, so I think that's a really important one, and you've really, um, opened up an interesting conversation there. So it's exactly, I think one of the most important things that we're sort of figuring out here is exactly what you've just said. There is no big financial gain from
Hmm.
what you're doing. And I
Yeah.
think as adults in the modern world, in particular, that we're living in, it feels like all of our time spent should be towards either supporting our family, in an emotional way, or it's supporting our family and that could be a family of just one, just to let you know, or you and your fur child, um, or supporting them in a financial way. And I think that the stresses of adulthood have really kind of removed the notion of, well, if we are less stressed, then actually we can probably provide all of those things in a much greater capacity. And
Hmm.
play really should, the things that we should be seeking from play really should be about um, the in the moment happiness for no other reason than enjoyment. And that
Hmm.
can be really tough. So, like, I've been very lucky that most of my jobs, certainly I'm going to use yoga teaching as one, is a passion job. Um, Doing a passion job is a tricky thing to do. It's wonderful, but
Hmm.
there are definitely times when it is just a job, just like that baseball player, right? There'd be people going, oh my God, I would love to be a professional baseball player, professional footballer, professional whatever it is that we think is like the coolest job out there. But at the end of the day, it becomes a job.
It becomes a job, yeah.
And then at some point, that capacity for growth um, will really start to minimize,
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
people that are in those roles still have to seek things that are totally unrelated to create that decompression, that flow state, that uh, lowering of the cortisols, that we can then still find more growth in the world. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really
Yeah.
important definition of what we're talking about, or an
Hmm.
important point. I find that really
Hmm.
fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about when is it that for me, because right now I definitely spend no time on play.
Mhm.
Like, I, the
Mhm.
vast majority of my days are dedicated to my job, my family, and it is important. Like, I think that's the hardest part as well. Realizing how important it is doesn't necessarily mean that you actually put the effort in finding time to play.
Mhm.
Um, And I think there is a lot of misconception as well. I'm thinking I have a few friends who are very passionate of Lego, right? They
Okay.
love Lego.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best example, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, you're definitely not earning any money. It's something that you choose to do. It is fun, definitely. I think it also really helps your brain stay active, right? And still, I was talking to my parents who are definitely older, and I was explaining to them that Lego still exists, right? Because, like, I was born in the 80s, and so they were like, "Oh, is Lego still a thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Some of my
Bigger than
friends still
ever.
play. And they were like, "Your friends? You're almost 40." And I was like, "Yeah, some of my even older friends still play." It's like, "But that's a kids game." And I'm like, "Is it though?" And even if it was, why would that be a problem? So I think a lot of people have this idea that
Yeah.
playing is just for kids. You are not supposed to play and have fun. So I think there is a bit of an overlapping definition here. Like, what is a hobby? What is play? What is a passion? What is all of them? Like, how do we have to define if something is not suitable for an adult or not? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't see anything wrong in playing with Legos. Like, it's something very, very healthy as well for your brain. So I really would like to encourage people to get out a little bit of like these preset boundaries
Yeah.
that we get from our family. If you have a family that tells you, "Oh, you're too old to play with Lego," they probably have a very boring life, let's be honest. Uh, so yeah, they can definitely do better than that. And as we said, each person, to me, Lego does not necessarily spark any kind of enjoyment. I'm not a huge fan, but I remember I used to have a blog, and I've always loved to play with words. I've always loved to write and read, and to me that was fun.
Yeah.
Right? It was a moment for
Yeah.
me to just talk about and write about my thoughts and try and see things differently. It was also fun. And I definitely wasn't making any money out of it.
Sure.
So it was something that I actually continued for a very long time. And I should definitely go back. Like, there are some things that really have a little bit of your week, of your day, dedicated to something that is fun and enjoyable for you, which could be literally anything. Some people are into board games, or I have some friends who still play with magic cards,
Yeah.
and they are almost 40 years old. And I'm like, well, why not? What is wrong with that? I don't think that there should be a limit to what we could do, what we should be able to do
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just to be happy.
Yeah. And I think, my husband, not long ago, he was at work, and it's funny because we've been concentrating on him for the last 12 months to find hobbies and play. So this is interesting because I think I've always been pretty good at having hobbies until I've moved here, funnily enough. I feel like, because of building a business, that's probably taken over an awful lot of my time and
Yeah.
thoughts, and it's time that I really think about this and bring back some of the old Hannah who did play musical instruments and have, other hobbies outside of just teaching yoga, for example, which is what I did for full time for over sort of 11 years. And so he was talking probably about a year ago with someone at work, and they just asked outright, "What are your hobbies?" And for the most part, our biggest hobby is actually walking our dog and drinking coffee. And that's our shared hobby. It's a really good, cheap hobby. and it's a healthy hobby, and it I guess it's a necessity hobby too, because our dog needs it. But sometimes she's quite happy just to stay on the couch, and we probably force feed her the 2 walks that she gets every day. Um, but she's a high energy dog, so in our brain we're just like, you must go outside or you're going to be very annoying.
Go crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so even if you're dragging your legs, and then she gets into it. And
Yes.
it was interesting because he sort of stumbled over, well, what are my hobbies? And it was a way for him to stop thinking so much about work and having work as his main priority. Suddenly really
Yeah.
realized, it was like in his face, wow, his job has always been the center focus of everything of his life, and maybe it's about time that actually he focused some other stuff, because
Yeah.
it's, well, it certainly wasn't working out in the way that we had hoped at this time of his career. um Hence why we ended up in America. That was just trying to stabilize his career again. Anyway, it really that really struck something for him. So we have been collectively trying to think, okay, what can you do? What can you do? So he has got into Lego this past year. And now
There
he's
we
got
go.
into sim car racing, and that's his new thing. So we make sure that he has time to do that every week. And I can see how that's really, like, as an observer of watching someone go through this really thoughtful and conscious effort to actually bring himself further away from concentrating fully on his job, because that wasn't giving him the delight and the happiness that he required and needed.
Yeah.
um, Seeing him really think it through, and we worked together trying to figure out, okay, what would be a good thing for you to start concentrating some more of your time and energy in each week. And it's really cool to watch, how he's sort of found a little more ease and a bit more enjoyment out of life from that. And anyone that's listening who's thinking, well, what about you, Hannah? I've had plenty of times in my life where it has been all about me enjoying things. You don't need to worry. It was just his turn to be like, okay,
Yeah.
what do I need to do? And I'm
Yeah.
talking from an observer's point of view. It was really interesting to watch that development, and how, his capacity for new things, and yeah,
Hmm.
his stress level has probably
Yeah.
reduced a bit because of it.
Yeah. I think an important point, and these are some practical tips that we can share with you listeners, is the fact that he is doing it little by little,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
he is
Yeah.
scheduling it
Yep.
likely, right? So
I have to get on board with
because
it. I have to make
yeah,
sure that he has that little bit of time each week to do those little
yeah,
passion projects, so it becomes
yeah,
a family
yeah,
thing, actually.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So like it doesn't have to become, oh my god, I have to do it every day, 2 hours a
No.
day, because otherwise it's not play anymore.
No, exactly.
And it has to be something that yes, you find time for it, but it has to be natural, I believe.
Yep.
And I think the best way to do this is attach play to something that already exists in your life. So if you are learning a new language, turn that into a
Yeah.
game.
Yep.
Try and cook something without aiming for perfection. You're just doing it to give it a go. So
Yeah.
the more you try to become perfect at something, the probably the less fun it is, So the aim here is not mastery.
Yep.
The aim here is attempting, trying and do things that you are probably bad at. I was actually thinking about, taking drawing, try and draw, because I'm
Yeah.
terrible at drawing. So it probably would be a good choice.
I think that last thing you've just said is one of the hardest things. So I think social media has a lot to do with this. This
Hmm.
idea of doing something unperfectly
Yeah.
is probably the hardest thing that we all have to work through and be more
Yeah.
comfortable with,
Hmm.
because social media is constantly showing us how talented someone is, or it's fake.
Yeah.
and how someone has mastered something.
Yeah.
And this idea of doing something for the enjoyment of it um, really should be at the forefront of our minds.
Yeah. Yeah. The point here is finding something that doesn't require special equipment, money, talent,
Yeah,
even just 10 minutes every day
yeah,
count. Like, I remember when I first started writing and blogging, I was just doing it, after dinner, 10 minutes, I would just write whatever came to mind, whatever happened during the day, and that's it. Like, often I wasn't even proofreading it. I was
yeah.
I was just sharing. Like, the idea was, yeah, I'm just sharing and having fun writing whatever happened in my day.
Hmm.
So if it starts to feel productive, you've probably gone too far.
Stop.
Stop and find something else. Go and play the ukulele. Go and do something completely different.
So basically, what we're telling you is go and be unperfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Let us know, guys. Let us know, like, what is stopping you from playing more. What could you do differently in your life to have more chances to play?
Yeah. And if play was allowed again in your life, you got space for that, what would you try first? I have to
Yeah.
say that I need to get my hang drum out immediately after the podcast recording and give myself 10 minutes of um, very poorly played drum.
Yeah, there you go. Let us know. Like, as always, you can find us on Instagram and on YouTube and on Spotify. So we are the Stretch Zone _ podcast. Let us know. Let us know. And thank you, Hannah, so much for today's chat. It was
Thanks,
really nice.
Beds.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon. Wrapping up today's episode, remember, you don't have to face change alone.
If you'd like to connect or learn more about working with us individually, reach out to us through our Instagram account at @thestretchzone_podcast, or find our emails in the footnotes to this episode. We're here to support you on your journey, each in your own way.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Stretch Zone. If today's discussion resonated with you, remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with anyone who might benefit. Until next time, keep stretching beyond your comfort zone.